Hello, dear Nazarbayev University and the Consortium of Gender Scholars Community. Uh, I will introduce myself once again because it's in my plan. My name is Nazgul Sagatova, and I'm an instructor at the Department of Computer Science at Nazarbayev University. Today, I'm going to present a research paper we wrote with Professor of Robotics Anara Sandagulova back in 2016, while I was working as a teaching assistant in the same department with Anara. This paper presents a study that tries to address the challenges of creating an effective educational robot. The research paper was presented at the Roman International Symposium in 2016 in New York City. So the human-robot interaction nowadays is no longer reserved for adults. The last few years, the number of social robots acting as tutors, learners, instructors, and peers in educational application has increased. So the role of educational robots was explored in the past for quite some time. For example, in the project led by Julia Fink from EPFL, they explored a robot, a social robot called Ranger that motivated children to clean their room. And they succeeded in that project. There was another project called Sparky that can show facial expressions to children, and children should have guessed what facial expression was shown to children. Another project was a robot called RoboV, made by our colleagues from Japan, spoke and taught English to children over a 2-week period at school. So all of these projects are about human-robot or child-robot interaction, and across various ages. But the child-robot interaction, we call it now CHRI, in educational settings were little explored now over that period of time. And we aim in this project to address this context of child-robot interaction, edutainment. Edutainment is made up of 2 words, education plus entertainment. So we feel that in child-robot interactions, the education should be also fun. In this project, we wanted to explore whether a social educational robot had any effect on school children in terms of their age and gender. For that purpose, we developed an educational social robot that learns English words together with a child rather than teaches these words to him or to her. For this research, we used a robot called Nalo. You can see the robot from the picture on the right. It's standing in front of one of our participants. It's a pupil from the school. So this research uses a social peer robot, which attracted children and has proven to have an impact on children's learning. In our scenario, the robot acts as a peer that is also learning English together with the child. So it's not a teacher, it's a peer, it's a friend. They both engage in a game on an Android tablet. So at the beginning of our experiment, child enters the room and the robot starts talking to a child. Robot encourages the child to take the tablet, to press all the buttons, and to start the game. The robot also encourages the child to choose an avatar for himself, and then the robot chooses his own avatar from the list of avatars. Basically, there were 4 avatars for children, and then only 1 avatar for the robot. So the idea of the game was you can see here that there is a list of fruits, and the child, as a player, was supposed to choose a fruit that starts with the name, that starts with the letter displayed as the upper right corner of the tablet. So in this case, the player should choose apple because it starts from A, which is displayed at this corner, at the right at the upper right corner of the tablet. So the robot also explains to the child the rule of the game. It also says that they are going to play the game in turns. At the end of the game, there is always a winner. So it's either a child or a robot. If the child loses or wins the game, a robot always supports or expresses sadness using gestures, hand gestures, and for verbal gestures as well. So, for example, if during the game or after the game, if the child loses, a robot says, "It's okay, you will get the next one," and you know, comforting phrases. But if the child wins, the robot no, yeah, if the child wins, the robot exclaims, "Oh, you're genius! Good, well done!" and things like that to make the game fun and to make the atmosphere comfortable for the child. Okay, so basically the focus of this research was to identify educational strategies for social robots and to help children learn taking into consideration their age and gender. With this in mind, we came up with two hypotheses. The first hypothesis is that children will learn more words when they play with a robot that will always lose. The second hypothesis is that there will be a difference between how boys and girls learn when interacting with different robots playing strategies. So as I mentioned before, the robot always loses or wins. It depends on how the child plays the game. So in the second hypothesis, was trying to show that boys and girls will learn differently depending on how the robot is going to play the game. Both of these hypotheses were based on the observations that competition has positive effect on motivation in young children. So in order to address these two hypotheses, we programmed the robot to have two playing strategies. One of the strategies is always winning robot, and the other strategy is the always losing robot. In always winning robot, the robot makes exactly one mistake less than the child. In an always losing robot makes exactly one mistake more than child. So it's always one mistake difference between two players. So also made sure that half of our participants played with always winning robot and the other half played with the losing robot. This way, we wanted to explore how the adaptive strategies of the robot impacted children learning. We also hypothesized that removing the teacher-student approach would make the learning process more comfortable and fun. We show that a robot can make mistakes, which creates the feeling of equality and makes the atmosphere more comfortable than having an authority in front of the child. We explore whether the child is going to do better or worse depending on how the robot's going to play. Okay, so the whole study was only like study was conducted with 83 children. Roughly half of them were boys and the other half were girls. The children were of ages between 6 and 8, and 4 different grades were participated. So we chose children from first, second, third, and fourth grades, basically primary school. You can see from the pie chart on the left that very roughly the same number of people were chosen from each grade, except for the first grade, because they are very small and sometimes they don't really understand what's going on. And from the second pie chart, you can see that we divided them almost 50%, 50-50. So the half of the 83 people played with always winning robot and the other half with a losing robot. And we also made sure that each group had equal number of girls and boys. And we also made sure that they had equal number of children from each grade. So distribution from the grade was equally almost the same. So the children, before the experiment, we visited the school and we gave children a brief introduction to the Now robot at the school. So we gathered all the children in one room and we gave introduction on what robot is, but we didn't show the robot, just to uh, avoid contaminating the results. So in this introductory session, children learned the information on the nature of the robot and on the purpose of the study. They were told that they were going to they were going to play a game with the robot, and then we also emphasized that they wouldn't be assessed, because when they hear that they would be that they would be great, they get worried and a bit nervous. We also explained that they're going to spend 10 minutes with the robot, and there would be also another researcher in the room, because by the school policy, so the school policy didn't allow a child to be alone in the same room with a robot. So there had to be one adult with the child as well. After that, so the how this whole process happened is each child was taken from the class. So the whole experiment happened over a week in a school. So we came there every day for a couple of hours, and we took each child from class, and the child walked with the researcher, with the researcher to the experimental room. So the researcher had an icebreaker talk. While walking, the researcher had an icebreaker talk with the child, just to relax him and prepare him for the experiment. Okay, so before the experiment, we also had to ask some questions from the child and fill out the questionnaire. And there was also a questionnaire after the experiment. So the student had to stay with us after the experiment for some time. The questionnaire is very important because it was the only way of gathering data from children, because they cannot express, they cannot answer questions in a normal way, because they needed pictures. They wanted us to talk to them rather than fill out questionnaires. So when we were asking questions from children, we didn't simply give them papers and pens to fill out the questionnaire, but we asked them questions and we had to do it individually, because otherwise they would feel intimidated or run away or cry or things like that. So the questionnaire, the main things that we measured in the questionnaire was these things displayed on the slide. So the main thing was the learning measurement. In that measurement, we collected data. We collected the difference in the number of fruit names known to the child prior and after the interaction. So how many words the child knew before the experiment and how many words he learned after the experiment. There was another measurement called mood change. So we measured the mood of the child before the experiment and his mood after the experiment using the smiley faces. Another measurement was called robot-like level. We also asked whether they liked the robot using the smiley faces as well. It wasn't a smiley face, it was a picture of a robot. It was happy robot, sad robot, average robot, angry robot. So we asked them to pick which they think the robot was. There was also another measurement called robot type. We asked children to compare if the robot was a toy, a computer, a pet, or a human for them. Another measurement called robot role. We asked whether children thought that the robot act as a teacher, friend, classmate, sibling, stranger, or a parent for them. There was another measurement called phonometer. We asked them to rate the fun, whether it was fun to play with a robot or not. We also used the smiley faces for that. And the last measurement was called English level compare. So we asked children to give a grade to themselves, whether they did good during the game. And then to give a grade to the robot, whether they thought that the robot learned new words as well and did good and was a good pupil. Okay, so the after gathering all the data and then parsing it, we received the following. In general, the children improved their English vocabulary after playing with a robot. Regarding the learning measurement, children learn twice as much words with the always losing robot rather than always winning robot. So when the robot always lost the game, they learned more words. This supports our hypothesis number one. But we didn't notice any significant results between gender groups. So the number of words learned by boys and girls were roughly the same, whether it's a losing robot or the winning robot. And there was no significant correlation between gender and robot conditions as well. So this whole thing rejects our hypothesis number two. We didn't find any information whether losing or winning robot had any gender effect. So whether it was affecting girls or affecting boys. In general, it affected children, but we didn't find any difference between gender. Regarding the likeliness, whether children liked the robot or not, so we found out that girls liked the robot more than boys. We think that because the robot was small and cute. And regarding other measurements called mood change, robot type, the type is a toy, pet, animal, and then robot role, teacher, friend, parent, and English level compared, where they were asked to give grade to himself and then to the robot. So we didn't in that area we didn't find any statistical significant results between boys and girls. The only thing that we found out was that children learned more words with the losing robot, and girls liked the robot more than boys. That's it. Other things were not significant. So when we analyzed this data, we started looking for relevant literature on the psychology of children, right? From the analysis of the results, it is clear that this edutainment, education plus entertainment scenario, has positive effect on children's learning with the always losing robots strategy, which supports our hypothesis one, and that the things that girls liked it more than boys, we didn't find any. So in general, maybe girls just prone to like cute and small things. According to Johnson, his research in 1993, children of ages 6 to 8, they always want to be first. So they are egotistical a little bit. Therefore, robots' losing strategy suits this age group best. So yeah, but in our previous study, we also found out that children of age 9 to 11 had a gender effect. So when the child gets older, there is a difference on how boys and girls learn. Because according to Johnson again, he concluded that healthy competition can motivate boys and some girls at that age group to learn more. And because of that, we hypothesize that starting from the age 10 or 11, robots playing strategies can be used in educational scenarios, and it can have effect on gender it can have a gender effect on learning as well. To conclude, in this research, we proposed a social educational robot that can have educational benefits in learning English. So children learned more words with the always losing robot rather than always winning robot, which supports our hypothesis number one. But we didn't find any statistical significant information that supports our hypothesis number two. So we didn't find any gender difference in that in learning. The girls rated our robot higher than boys. In general, as a conclusion, we can say that our project provides promising basis for the HRI studies and helping children learn a foreign language with a robot. Thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, I'm ready to answer.
Thank you so much, Nazgul. Really fascinating to hear all of your in-depth process and how you went from the beginning, the construction of this study, and then all the way through to thinking about, for me, as I have two young children, about the ways in which, right, children appreciate the winning strategy, or the to have the robot actually lose. It's like, oh, yep, that makes sense, right, for the various age ranges.
Exactly. It's fascinating. Yeah, we were also surprised.
Thanks so much. Okay, well, if you would like, maybe you can unshare and then we can see everyone a little bit larger. And then I guess if there's a question, then we could return to your slideshow.
Okay, can just give me a second. I'm gonna unshare.
Sure. Perfect.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, come on in. Hi, Amira.
Sorry for being late. I was supposed to be there from the beginning, but my internet was cut. That's why I'm a little bit late. So thank you for your presentation. So I'd like to ask something like about femininity and masculinity of gendered robotics. As we know, men are more likely to prefer robots than females, and the females have more negative attitudes towards robots, right? So accordingly, little boys and girls may have different attitudes towards robotics, but you have said that there was not any difference between girls and boys apprehension of knowledge, so the results were the same. So my question is about have been there any research on the design of robots, like if the design and the voice and the appearance of a robot is like a girl, so can it have a different impact for learning the children's like capabilities? So girls maybe can learn from female robots. So was there any such research or study on that, and what's your opinion about it?
Personally, I didn't participate in that kind of in that kind of studies, but I'm sure there are studies that assess the appearance of the robot, and they compare how female and males feel towards that robot. In our case, as I mentioned, everyone thinks that the now robot is very cute. And I think therefore girls liked this cute robot more than boys. And because boys are competitive and they also young children, and they would be very competitive towards another small object, another young robot. So the now was regarded as a young child of the same age, probably for them. And also, the thing that I forgot to mention is the robot that we had a male voice. And I think that's why they felt a little bit competitive, and girls just liked it in general. But what my opinion is, so I've been watching these movies lately. It's called Better Than Us and Humans. I don't know if you watch them on Netflix, but it's so the robots over there, they look very beautiful, and they are female most of the time. So it seems that female don't like female robots, and male. So they so like as in life, like opposite, but opposite sex like attracts in general mostly.
Okay.
Yes. So
because I also have a daughter and a boy, son, and I was thinking that little girls may prefer female like robotics, but you say that the results were almost the same. So I see it. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Amir, and thank you, Nazgul, for that. There's actually some of the research that's happening at NU, so that Dr. Anara Sandagulova is working on. She's looked into some of these aspects in terms of the looking at voices, looking at some of the gender also. So I think continuing your wonderful work, Nazgul, that you've done, and this idea, Amira, I remember coming into one of the blocks and there was an experiment that some of the robotic students were doing. They had those very cute, as you're saying now, robots dressed up in different ways. So some with like a pink bow and some with like a blue bow tie. So just these very subtle differences to see if there were differences for, you know, this very traditional or old way of thinking about gender as a binary, right? So, all right, in this binary, what does it look like, and how are children affected in these different ways? So it's really exciting then to hear where your work has contributed to this Nazgul, and then to think about moving forward also, Amira. Great. Do we have other questions or comments? I know, Maria, you also were mentioning about your children. Maybe there's something here that made you consider something else, and as well as AI, which I know you're particularly interested in and as well.
To be honest, I'm traditionally a parent who's opposite to any intervention, any IT intervention into my kids' development. So until recently, until COVID, I was really strict on all those devices and stuff. So traditionally, I'm kind of skeptical about all this type of interventions, but I guess I can see this in this research, including that there is a potential to maybe cooperate alongside of traditional schooling, where, you know, we have a human interaction and robots go alongside of it. So I guess I'm looking more optimistic into the future, where kids don't need to necessarily compete against robots, where robots can actually help in development and I guess coincide instead of competing with each other.
Yes, but from the other, we also had other study where we examined the role of a teacher. Yes, so I had many studies, I forgot which one was that, but there in the discussion, we were saying that children from our area, from Kazakhstan, Russia, Japan, most of Asian countries, and then most of the CIS countries, they are used to authorities. So we are used to having teachers. We don't listen to anyone except teachers who are older than us, who have more experience, and who are a lot stricter than us. So having peer robots in this area is less beneficial than having peer robots in, for example, US, Europe, and Canada. Yeah, so
quite interesting.
As you were, Maria, saying, you were voting for traditional, so that's why the mindset of people that live in this area is more traditional education. So in this area,
my kids come from overseas, because I have been living overseas for the past 20 years. Mm-hmm. So all my parenting kind of what is it called, like skepticism, maybe, I don't know, comes from actually from the Western, well, Western maybe is too big, from Australia, New Zealand kind of the type of education. And they are not high on interventions just yet, I guess. But it's quite interesting to see that different cultural aspects can influence children's education differently.
Mm-hmm. It's surprising.
Yeah. Surprisingly, yes. But I also should admit that regardless of what I want for my children as a parent, I can see that they really, really inclined for the interactions with robots and all sorts of devices, and maybe sometimes in expense of human interactions with their peers. But I see a point. This is different to, device telling a child, do this, do that. It's more like a peer interaction, which is something I didn't think about before. Maybe robot peers is something, is a different aspect of that.
Yeah, definitely something different. And it seems to help for younger children, especially.
Thank you, Nazgul, and thank you, Maria. I know some of the other work, it's been fascinating to learn more about how robots can be used in various ways in terms of interventions with children with autism. So we were chatting a bit before we started the presentation, right? This, how to interact with somebody else, and how after the interaction with a robot, for instance, with a Now robot, how students who had trouble looking at even their parents in the eye, they were able to increase their ability to look at people in the eye or their family members after having this engagement with a robot.
Interesting, yeah.
Great. Anyone else have any questions or comments?
I guess maybe another, coming back to this
Sure.
discussion, you know, human interactions versus robot interactions. Do you play in, you know, same kind of condition, one versus a robot peer, and compared to those? Do you understand what I'm talking about? The idea behind.
Hello, sorry, Maria. I think it's my internet, or
I think we lost you, Maria, for a moment.
All right, okay.
Maybe
Yeah,
you can say it again, because now it sounds like you were okay, or you can type it.
Yeah, sure. No, I think I was walking around my house, that's why it's interrupted. But now at my desk, do you think you can possibly organize this, a study where you could compare kids interacting with a robot and their improvement in, let's say, English, and a different group of kids interacting with humans and their level of English improvement? Just to getting back to this discussion, do kids learn better with the human interaction, or whether there is not much difference in between two of those? What are your plans about it? What are your thoughts about it? Have you been thinking about similar studies and, you know, this kind of question in this type of context?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because it's an interesting question for me, because I was talking to Anna earlier that so this study was done in 2016 while I was working as a teaching assistant in the Department of Robotics. And after I moved to in the computer science department, I started doing completely different things. Not completely, also in artificial intelligence, but a little bit away from child-robot interaction. So for the future, probably I would love to engage in a project that you are now talking about, because it sounds very interesting. But I'm sure some people are already undertaking this kind of studies. Hopefully Anara is also doing it. I'm not very up to date with what is going on, because lots of papers are being written and lots of things are happening. So, but your idea sounds quite interesting. There might be, so there might be some people already doing it, as I said. We should just maybe search. I'm just going to search it later on, because it sounds very interesting, yes.
Okay, thank you. And maybe your personal opinion, not like as a scholar, but as a human being, as maybe someone who's engaged in robotics as a professional. Mm-hmm. Do you think we should be worried about robots coming into our life now, into our kids' life more, or should we be more optimistic about it? And your personal view on that, except from like alongside your study, not necessarily involved in that study.
So what I think is, well, for the robot to be able to interact on the child level, it has to be very intelligent and also be feeling what a child feels too, because child can feel a various amounts of a spectrum of emotions, if you take into account even the like child with an autism spectrum, or not the child with an autism spectrum, or other things that happen to a child. So the robot has to be very emotional in that sense and social. To reach that level of artificial intelligence nowadays, I think I want to be optimistic, but it's getting there, but it's going to get there slowly. So I wouldn't be worried about robots, like as other people also say, taking over the world for now.
Right.
Hello?
Thank you. Yes, thank you. That's interesting. So for the robots to be at the same emotional level or at the similar, human interaction level is a long way to go. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because when adult engages in a conversation or any other kind of activities with a social robot, it kind of understands what to expect and also lowers the expectations. But a child doesn't probably and expects even more or starts abusing, or whether it's a fine line between whether the robot knows where abusement starts or whether it knows where certain things start or end. I think it's kind of difficult to implement nowadays.
Interesting, because the speed of development of artificial intelligence is like absolutely mind-blowing. So some people say that it's not that far for the artificial intelligence to be at a similar level as humans in terms of emotions. But your personal view that it's not that near future yet.
Yes, because even I sometimes don't understand how emotions work.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, psychology is very difficult area.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
However, artificial intelligence sometimes understands things better and faster. I've just sorry to engage in this. I think it's not up to topic.
Fine. No, it's fine, Maria.
But even artificial intelligence just they found out the formula of proteins, something that human beings couldn't develop or couldn't come up with for many what is it? Not centuries, but many years. And artificial intelligence came up with this in a very short period of time. So the time of development is really it's very mind blowing. So, but I can see you understand that human emotions is something absolutely difficult even to understand for the human beings.
It is a very different field as well. But when it comes to computation and then prediction, all the calculations, AI is way ahead of a human.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the emotional side, the social side, it's very behind, I'd say.
Interesting. Well, thank you so much for your opinion.
Many other AI experts are going to argue with me now, but hopefully we don't have them here.
This could start a good discussion, right? So then that means that there can be another chance where then we can have a panel and we can have a discussion about this, right?
Some people believe that once you are in AI, you have to believe AI completely and utterly with your head in. You have to be all for AI and be also positive. But it's not
clearly
always
right. Exactly, right? That there's always another way to look at things, and so we appreciate you bringing in your own thoughts and the varied ways that you're looking at AI, your work in robotics, your previous work in just integrating these ideas. Is there anyone else that in the last few minutes maybe has a question or a thought that they might like to share? Okay. All right. Well, let's give, if you want to unmute for a moment, we can clap and say thank you to our speaker. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Trying this out.
Thank you. It was very useful.
I'm glad. I try to be very informative as well. Just cut out all the water.
It was. Thank you. I'll go ahead and stop the recording now.
Okay. Thank you.